So we continue our knowledge sharing mission through a series of interviews with marketing leaders all over the world, and we're thrilled to have Rachel with us today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to CMO Chats. My name is Rachel Conlan, and I am the Global Chief Marketing Officer of Binance.
For the first question, Rachel, tell us about yourself and your role at Binance.
So Binance is the world's largest crypto exchange. We offer a platform where you can buy, sell, and trade what we call digital assets like Bitcoin and BNB. But beyond trading, it's a global ecosystem with products like Binance Pay, Web3 Wallet, staking and earn tools, and most importantly, educational resources that are all really designed to make crypto more accessible, trusted, and useful for everyone. As CMO of Binance, I'm really lucky to oversee both our global and our local marketing efforts. So that involves everything from shaping our brand and growth strategies to driving high impact partnerships. That could be in sports entertainment, or it could be in the Web2 space, community activations, and obviously user acquisition campaigns. I'm really privileged to have an incredibly strong team behind me of over 230 marketeers. They're operating across about 100 markets. And their role and our role, in the marketing team is really to ensure that Binance is not just the largest crypto exchange, but it's also the most locally relevant one too. So that could involve anything on a given day, from launching a grassroots education program in Africa. I just visited Kenya, and we looked at how what we could do from the educational perspective there, to scaling our KOL, or what otherwise is known as influencer-led campaigns, or partnering even with global icons like Cristiano Ronaldo or CR7. So everything we do is designed to bring crypto into your everyday life, depending on where you are in your crypto journey. And really my role sits at that kind of intersection of innovation and how we show the real world impact that crypto and digital assets can have. And my personal motivation around joining this industry was to make it more understandable and accessible and more human to many who still didn't understand it.
That's definitely impactful, Rachel, and thanks for sharing that. So moving into our next question, what is your main marketing focus at the moment?
We have a lot of key, obviously objectives that we're working across that can get very technical. But I would say our global and overall, mission and focus is about how we drive more adoption. That's at both the grassroots level with our OG community, and also at the global level with the broader audiences that have yet to engage with the space. So we've been really aggressively expanding Binance's brand presence in both established and frontier markets. And that involves us heavily investing in community building. It involves us really double downing and supporting education and financial literacy and inclusion. And obviously focused on how we can drive that long-term, industry growth. I've mentioned Kenya already, but I was in also Pakistan earlier this week to look at how we can explore how blockchain can really solve those real world challenges and open access to financial tools. And these kind of efforts are really critical in our mission to onboard the next wave of users. We're still only, as an industry, at about 660 million holders. Binance has over 262 million of those holders on our platform, but we're a long way away from getting to that billion users, which gets us to that, critical milestone of kind of everyday, where we're integrated into everyday life.
Definitely exciting for that, and fingers crossed. So moving into our third question, how do you define success in marketing?
There's lots of different ways you can, measure your KPIs or look at, the success of different projects. But for me, kind of the overarching measure of success is impact. Are we helping more people understand and use crypto? Are we growing the ecosystem in a way that is responsible and trusted? As I mentioned, today we serve over 262 million users globally. That North Star is reaching 1 billion. It's an ambitious goal, but it's really grounded in that belief that, everyone everywhere should have access to better financial tools. So, every effort or every action that we take as a company, not just as a marketing team, is how we're scaling that awareness, how we're building that trust, and how we are creating that meaningful engagement that turns, curiosity into confidence in the space. I think we know there's a lot of people curious about this space at the moment, but how do we use it to really drive engagement?
Moving into our next question, what would you say is the biggest challenge marketers face today?
I think I don't like talking about challenges. I like talking about opportunities. I think, though, you can define this as both a challenge and an opportunity. It's really about building trust. We're so nascent. Binance is only 7 years old, soon to be 8 in 2 months' time. So it's really, how do we build trust in a space that's still so new and not understood by everyone? So, as marketeers, we need to be those storytellers, those translators. We need to break down and debunk the myths and, translate what is seen by some as this complex technology into, the reasons to believe. What are the tangible benefits for you? In crypto, that further, the opportunity is further made complex by the pace of innovation. We're really moving faster than maybe, what is the comprehension levels of our full audience. We really need to always stay kind of grounded in clarity, grounded in transparency, really ensure that we're showing our value at every stage of the journey and to every type of user that we engage, because bridging that gap is what's going to help us ensure that we sustain this industry and this business for the longer time.
That's exactly right. Thanks for that, Rachel. Moving into our next question. Out of all of the marketing initiatives that you've led, which one has the sales team been most excited about?
God, there's too many to share in this. But I think one of the most powerful, there's 2 very powerful initiatives that we have, both from brand engagement and then from a growth perspective. Firstly, one thing I will say is Binance built the marketing playbook when they launched for crypto. It really is very different from the spectator approach that Web2 marketers use. It's something that's very experiential, it's very personal. One kind of key format that has been so successful are the community events that we host all around the world, and on an annual basis, we host, I think last year we hosted about 1,600. This year we're en route to hosting 2,000. And, we're a digital business, but what these community meetups happen offline really allow you to do is to engage, in a more personal, in a face-to-face situation and allow us to not only meet our users or prospective users face-to-face, but allow us kind of foster those direct conversations and dialogue that help us understand what we need to do to drive more loyalty and trust. So these events, which are educational format or product trainings, they often spark and inspire, and they allow our BDs or the sales force to really understand what they need to do to grow this industry more. I think the second most important initiative that we have as Binance and largely as the crypto industry is our referral campaigns that we do, because I learned about this industry through a friend. And what is more trusted than a friend sharing with you, why you should join? I take most of my recommendations on brands from friends, whether it be beauty, whether it be food. So, I do think that's something, an insight that the crypto industry and Binance latched onto early. And it's something that, drives huge growth for us and allows us kind of foster deeper connections with our users.
Thanks for that, Rachel. Moving on to our 6th question. Which marketing strategies have driven the most engagement and lead generation?
There's so many here. It's difficult because we are such a multifaceted business. I think one of the bigger partnerships that we've done is with CR7 or with Ronaldo. We have many kind of global and local partnerships, but I think having the opportunity to work with CR7, who's, the GOAT, one of the most trusted athletes of all time, has been incredibly powerful. And I think we're asked a lot why we partnered with him. And I think his influence really transcends borders and demographics. And it just allows us bring the Binance brand and Binance brand name into people's homes in a different way. I think it's a really good example. Everything that Ronaldo stands for is what we stand for, resilience, hardcore, high performance, fast. So there's such a shared brand DNA there, and the opportunity to, work with him on different programs has been phenomenal. And we have gained a lot of visibility, and that does get discussed a lot. And, while you can't attribute every single user to this, it has brought us into people's, minds and hearts in a different way.
That's great, Rachel. So going into our 8th question, what's the most successful event you've hosted and why?
think the most successful, we do a lot of events that I would say are very successful, but one of the watershed events for us was really Binance Blockchain Week that took place in 2024, October 2024 in Dubai. I think it was on the back of incredible momentum in our industry. We'd had the ETF approvals. We had, massive influx of institutional funds. Bitcoin was at all-time highs. And I think this event, really how I described it, it became almost like the Davos of crypto. It was an opportunity for us to bring together global founders, regulators, builders, and different parts of our community to discuss what is the future of crypto and Web3. We had extraordinary attendance. I think we had over 4,000 people physically come and over 1 million people stream across the 2 days into the programming. And the content, really looked forward to what needs to happen in order for us to get to that billion mark. And the momentum and energy was just incredible. I had a lot of what I describe as normies or newbies come to that event. They really felt that they started to understand this industry more through that. We actually also, if anyone wants to check this out, we also documented the making of Binance Blockchain Week and we distributed it on Amazon. So if anyone wants to find out a little bit more about that event, you can check it out there or on our YouTube channels at Binance.
Even I might actually do a quick check on that. It's very interesting. Thanks for the heads up. I might show it to friends as well because they're really big fans. But moving on to our 8th question, what's a piece of traditional leadership advice that you think doesn't really apply to modern CMOs?
Yeah, I think it's about really staying endlessly curious. I've been lucky in my career. I've spent 20 years working in marketing and media and entertainment. And I think the best marketeers are students of culture, of behavior, of technology. Really not being afraid to try new things and iterate and failing fast, even when you are a big brand like ours. And I have plenty of examples of that I can show where we fail fast. And I think using those as ways to start to understand your audience deeply and never lose sight of your mission is important. The last key piece of advice I would give is just about staying humble. Our landscape moves fast. Just because we're number one today and what worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to be number one tomorrow. It's going to work. So it's really staying humble and really making sure that you stay user-centric and obsessed with your past, your current, and your future users at every stage.
That's great, Rachel. Absolutely agree as well on that front. So going into our next question, what's the biggest opportunity for CMOs today that you think wasn't really available in the past?
Yeah, when I started, in advertising and in branding, the ability to connect directly with users in real time wasn't available. And I think that is something, whether through social or your community channels or your KOL and your creator, your influencer collaborations, we have this amazing suite of tools to be able to actively listen and learn and engage without filters, or without research companies packaging up things the way they think we want to hear it. If you layer that on top of the data and then marry that with what are the plethora of AI tools that are available to this now, we have this incredible opportunity not just to actively listen, but also to respond in real time, which allows us to build that trust and that more deep and meaningful connection that, is every marketer's goal in order to deliver that value for our users.
So going into our last question, how would you describe the role of a CMO in one word?
Oh, I always say it's like being a fortune teller or being a mind reader. No, it's about really being able to see what's next and do that before others do and steer your brand to meet what are the future expectations of the community and your users. So that's everything from identifying emerging trends to aligning the teams around purpose or really just inspiring innovation. But most of all, removing blockers and trying to simplify and really remove what sometimes are situations that are man-made. Like we tend to make things more complex than they are. So being able to cut through that and get to the simplicity of what's really going to drive value and drive the business forward is what's the critical role of a CMO.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Rachel, for answering the questions.